Welcome to the Pulling Each Other Along podcast, where we have the most wonderful guests in the world share their journeys of who and what pulled them along to their relative greatnesses in both business and life. Thanks for tuning in. The Pulling Each Other Along podcast starts right now. Hello, this is Doug Cornfield in another episode of the Pulling Each Other Along podcast. And as I always typically intro, we have the best guests in the world. And I've got another one, even though I'm just getting to meet her. Heard her story today in a group session. I'm out in Utah doing multiple podcasts this week. So if you're listening to the show, there's a whole bunch of great people that I'm getting to interview, doing it solo. So if you're not hearing my Daves, Dave Clark and Dave Stevens didn't make this trip. This was for me to meet all these great people. And so we miss our Daves, but we'll get them back on. And I have got somebody that really, really has a story, I think, true and near and dear to my heart. You know, that entrepreneurial story, that rags to riches, and then now teaching and helping other people and pulling them along by, from my perspective, getting them unblocked, teaching them paths that can create and help them create more wealth, and teaching specifically women, but not just women from what I can understand. So without further ado, I'm going to let you, I always try to let my guests introduce themselves so I don't mess up their long names or that, all those things. But Dr. Amanda, introduce yourself and tell us, what you're passionate about.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Doug. Well, let's start with what I'm passionate about, because that's the most fun.
And your name.
Yes, Dr. Amanda the Money Healer.
There you go.
Yep, and my company is NFA Money, which stands for No Around. Yes. I'll start with money in general, because I think that if you think of the top stressors in life, money is up there. It's cause of divorce and sleepless nights and just so many things that money is related to. And so for me, after I went from food stamps to building a six-figure business,
nice.
I realized how stuck we get and how actually you can overcome. And so I had my whole quest is to help 5 million people inspire, transform, and empower their relationship to money.
You got this down.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. I mean, when you said that, one of the stories that come to me that keeps me grounded, and we've been up that road, and one of the things that I like to kind of remind myself is how quickly things can change. Mm-hmm. They can change when you have a lot of money, and it can go poof, big changes. And then it can change when you don't have money, and it can have a big change, and you can be on the road to success. But I spent some time in Haiti as a young man, and got to go to orphanages. And when you see real poverty,
mm-hmm.
Not even probably what you're talking about from food stamps, we're talking about no food, kind of poverty. And, and so in our country, we're so blessed beyond. And so even though people, there's that stigma of needing food stamps or even getting help or not having enough food in your cupboard to really feed your family, all those kind of stresses. And so how did you get pulled out of that?
Yeah. Podcasts, really.
Wow, podcasts.
I know. I love podcasting. I have such a heart for podcasting because for me, it all started when I was on the floor crying one night. I had left my 15-year marriage having an affair, and my next relationship wasn't working. So I was sitting on this empty basement floor because my boyfriend had moved all of his stuff out, and I'd spent the day on Craigslist looking for houses for me and my 3 kids, and I couldn't afford anything.
Right.
I was already on food stamps. I was in grad school. So, I was already working an extra job. I was doing everything I could. And so I was just crying and, in this state of thinking, no one's coming to save me. What am I going to do?
Right.
And I sat up and I remember thinking, I'm the common denominator here. Like, I'm the problem. And, that was liberating because I thought, okay, I got to do something different. And so I really made a commitment to myself. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to figure out how to have healthy relationships and make more money. And it led to me listening to podcasts because I was already really busy and I didn't have money. So I could listen on the go.
Free education podcast.
Oh my God, like such a gift to the world. And so I'd listen everywhere I was going, like driving my kids to school and washing the dishes. And I started to learn and change. And at the same time, my department had this national news fallout and professors were leaving and it was just stress. And I thought, I don't want to be a professor anymore, which is what I was on track for. And so I decided, all of these cool podcasts that I'm listening to are done by coach type people. And I really, really loved to teach. And so I decided I'm just going to take the leap and become a coach. And I went 6 figures in that first year. And I would say that, it was mindset. It was all mindset work. It was changing what I believed from within. So I always tell people your outer world is an expression of your inner world. And if you don't like what you're getting on the outside, you've got to change what's within. And really then everything feels good. It doesn't even matter the amount of money that you have, right? It's all a mindset piece. And so as I started to really learn that and play with, what I now say manifestation, which in the beginning I was like, I'm never going to tell anyone I'm learning about manifestation. It's like too woo-woo and silly. And I started really learning the art and science behind it and the quantum physics behind it. And I'm like, well, of course, we're just energy and we're sending out signals.
Right.
And so the signal I was sending out before was, I'm stuck, I'm scared, I'm alone, I'm afraid. And that's what I kept getting back at me. And so I would sabotage things and I would always feel stuck and alone. And so as I started to change my belief system, then my relationships changed. I healed relationships from my past and started to make money, and now I'm happily married, and my whole life is just completely different now. And so I love to help people understand what's unconsciously holding them back.
Right. And so how do you do that? I mean, that's obviously a pulling each other along, where you're pulling people along. So how, obviously we're not going to get your whole life story and your whole book all in one little sentence here, but what are some of the ways that you do that?
Yeah, first by reminding people that your thoughts and feelings are what create your reality. So having people realize if they think that they're going to be stressed out every day and overwhelmed and overworked, and somehow that's going to lead to a happy future, that doesn't equate, right? Under universal laws, if you're stressed every day, you're creating a signal of stress, and so you're going to get a stressful future. And so you've got to start with just doing small little things to up-level your vibrational frequency. Okay. So, I always ask myself in the morning, what's my vibe today?
All right.
And you can start by doing little things like breathing.
Right.
Just breathing, just checking in with yourself and going, how do I feel right now? Let's say you feel off. Listen to some happy music. Listen to an inspirational podcast. Read a chapter in an inspirational book. And just take a few minutes to change the way you feel in the moment. And when you keep doing this repetitively, you actually reprogram your mind. And then you start to see different results.
That's really good. And obviously that fits into my, I just gave you one of my books, the Pulling Each Other Along book. And, you got 31 stories of people sharing what pulled them along in their life's journey. And these are inspirational people. And so I'll be very curious to get some true feedback. I don't look for that, oh, that was wonderful, pat you on the back kind of thing. Of course, I'm pretty biased and I think the book's pretty great, but I'm also co-author. So I'll look forward to somebody like yours, true thinking and what you think about the book and each chapter.
To me, what you're putting out there is so awesome because those inspirational stories give us so much hope. And they tap us into our heart. Like when I got to meet you earlier and you shared your story, my eyes filled up with tears. I'm just like, that is awesome.
Yeah.
And so the stories in your book, I'm sure, are the same. And I would imagine, like, if you're in a bad mood, you read one of those stories, you're not going to be in a bad mood anymore.
Right.
And so that's important to do. And so the work you're doing is so important. And we need to remind ourselves every day, I'm the creator of my reality. So whatever I'm doing in a patterned way, whatever I'm thinking and feeling, that's what I'm going to get back reflected to me.
Gotcha.
And so if I want to change, it's as simple as that. Read a chapter in your book.
Right.
Listen, even, I love to tell people, like, dance around your house. Sometimes when I'm in my office, I'll just do 5 jumping jacks.
Yeah.
It's just changing your energetic state and up-leveling it. And then you keep doing that over and over because we get the neural wiring.
Right. When we talk about the flow too, I think you even brought up that word. And sometimes it's like, I'll be sitting at a restaurant or whatever, and you meet somebody, or you're at a bar, and I'm in Florida or something like that. And sometimes you don't even talk to people. And then sometimes it's just like you can't get away from people. It's just like they're almost like magnets, like you're saying. I'm a money magnet. And of course, when I sit down with somebody, and if I'm at a hotel or the airport, if I'm the person sitting beside me or whatever, and if they ask me, what do you do? And sometimes you don't even talk to that person. And sometimes you don't stop talking, for the whole trip.
Yeah.
And, of course, when I say, well, I run sports camps for kids with disabilities, I'm not selling Melaleuca. I'm not selling insurance. I'm not your financial advisor anymore. And I'm not against any of those things. But it's pretty different, because you're usually not going to sit beside somebody that runs sports camps for kids with disabilities.
No. Yeah.
And sometimes you get somebody and it's just like, oh, that's nice. And then they don't even want to talk to you. And then obviously the other side of it, it's like almost it gets like, I don't want to talk to them because I'm like wanting to do other things. But it is what I do. And, and sharing our vision and sharing the things about Dave Clark and Dave Stevens and my son Gideon, who was born with no arms, and the story I shared with you earlier, which we're not even going to share today because, many, it gets shared almost too much on this show sometimes, but the Pound of Kindness story.
Inspirational. You're such an inspiration. And I think that's when you're doing what inspires you in the world, then you get inspired people coming into your reality.
Right.
Which is really fun. I'm sure that's changed for you over your transitions in careers.
Yeah. It's I come out of the children's entertainment industry where I had a lot of success. And then that kind of fell through the whole world with DVDs and VHS and all that stuff just changed so rapidly. Got involved with another company, but then I wound up partnering with my brothers and I was a financial advisor for years. And that was pseudo, entrepreneurial. But when they had the big crash and big mergers and fallout from the bailouts and all that kind of stuff, my heart wasn't there. Mm-hmm. It's just simple as that. My heart wasn't there. And I told my brothers I was going to look to do something different. And I had met Dave Clark, who's not here today, but, many of you know his just incredible story. And when you have a son that was born with no arms and you meet this guy that played professional baseball on crutches, you're like, I got to figure out this story a little bit. What did his parents do? And, that's how our relationship got started. But Dave's heart was to do sports camps for kids with disabilities. And I said, all right, let's figure it out. I didn't know I was going to be traveling all over the world telling these stories, but it's a privilege to get to do what I do. Yeah. But we had to make a big pivot. And so when you're saying I'm a money magnet, I need to become a money magnet too, even though I have been in the past differently. And now we're just pivoting, and through podcasts and getting to meet people, and through podcasts, we're trying to bring in people into our network. And I'd love to know more about how, what would you do if you were me? We're pivoting out of selling literally a lot of honey and cheese and maple syrup and books and speaking events to bringing a community of people to help pull us along so we can inspire the world through Disability Dream and Do.
Yeah, well, it's really two different parts to what you're talking about. Because one is the energetic alignment for you, and then the other is business strategy. And when those two are combined, they create powerful, when they're combined and aligned, they create powerful magnetism. And so, for you, it's the switch in your mindset of self-promotion for finding people who have an inspired vision like you, or an inspired calling like you, or it's something they care about. So anytime we're selling and we want to be magnetic with our money, we're selling to people's values. And so you're going to look for people who are inspired like you along those same lines, and then attract their communities in those ways, and then just share your heart in that. So, money magnetism is always about your alignment in terms of your thoughts and your feelings. So if you feel good about what you're doing in the world, you will automatically know the way. The next first step is always going to open up to you, and you'll see it. Like, I bet you on this path have seen a lot of times, all of a sudden you're like, where the heck did that opportunity come from?
So many times.
Isn't that cool?
So many times. I mean, we've sold a lot of honey in the last whatever years. My son was a big part of that, my daughter. And it's amazing, I could almost sense, like, why would this former financial advisor be out on a table selling honey? Yeah. But what the people didn't realize is I had multimillionaire people coming up and saying, what's this about? Well, I run sports camps for kids with disabilities. Oh, really? And before you know it, I'd have a $10,000 speaking event. Yeah. And before you know it, we have another sponsor for our sports camps, or a restaurant owner that gives us a $500 gift card to spend, on his restaurant. It's just little things like that would happen because we were out there front line. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I'm talking about in the flow. Yeah. But because of the COVID response and all the things that have happened, we're in that pivot mode right now. And that's I am excited, and I do feel like we are aligned because what we do is great. Yeah. I can pat myself on the back. Yeah. And then, okay, now how do we get the train full of gas and energy again so we can move it down the tracks?
So I want to highlight to everyone listening, you're exactly describing how manifestation works. So it's a 3-step process. I always tell people my NFA manifestation formula. 1, you got to know with clarity the direction you're going. 2, take action in the direction. And 3, let the universe bring you the ways. And that's that simple. So you use that every single time. So just like you did with the honey, you're going to do the exact same thing, pivoting to the online space. And so it's about having the inspired clarity, like, hey, we are dedicated, committed, and certain that we're building this path in this community. And then you just keep taking steps and you trust, right? So a lot of it, the flow is about faith. I always tell people fear is the future expectation of awful results. Okay. Or you're in flow, which is faithfully looking for opportunities to win.
That's where I am.
And you're in flow, right? And so then you just know that you have no resistance. Right. The only thing that stops manifesting or being a money magnet is resistance. And most people cause resistance because they're freaking out about the speed at which it comes. and they're impatient. And so they're pushing and forcing, and it causes resistance, which actually makes it take longer.
Right.
So when you're in flow, you just go like, it'll happen. It's happening.
Right.
You don't even think it will happen. It's already happening.
Right.
And
well,
so
and it's already happened. It's already happened. It got shut down a little bit.
Yeah.
We kept moving, not as fast as we wanted to. And because of that, though, as far as even the universal flow or how we want to look at it, because I talk about that with Dave, how we came together.
Yeah.
I was like, well, the winds blew us together. And some people could say we were, like we were soulmates at another life. Yeah. Like we were playing baseball with a professional baseball team back in the 1920s before both of us were born. And we decided to get together in this life. And it almost feels like that in some way. And I don't know. I'm not telling you, but I know. But it almost has that kind of weird connection, soulmate connection kind of stuff. And, and that's our flow and it keeps us going. And I can tell you my business plan to get a movie deal for Dave, which was get him out there, let people know his story, figure out ways to get him in front of people. We've got to meet somebody that would want to help us to make this a movie.
And then it happened.
Yeah.
So it's like you're exactly on the right track.
It took a long time.
Yeah. And it can, but then along the way, you're planting all of those seeds that you don't know how those are going to blossom in other ways, right? So I always trust when I'm on the path and doing what's inspired for me and what's aligned. Something might not happen today, but a week from now, a year from now, who knows?
10 years.
Right. Even if it takes 10 years, it's still like you think about what you learned along the way and the things that I was listening to something the other day. I can't remember where I heard this, but I thought that's so brilliant. They were saying if we manifested everything we thought about instaintaneously, our lives would be a wreck.
You're probably right about that.
Right. I thought that was so funny to think about.
And even the timing for us, I had gotten Dave to speak at a Olympic Elite event. He was an Olympic coach. And so we got invited through a friend of ours that I had met through us speaking and all the networking things that we were doing for the last 10 years, 12 years. And we got invited to Ohio, Tiffin, Ohio, middle of nowhere kind of place. And we spoke and we were with all these other Olympians. And there was one young gentleman that was there with my friend just to hang out for a few days. But this one young man happens to be the son of the person that runs the Monaco embassy, who's very interested in film, making movies, acting, the whole bit. And we built a relationship.
So perfect. You just gave so many good examples of manifestation.
But that did take a long time. And then the other side of the manifestation, right, when we signed movie deals, on the other side of the world that you just can't understand is 2 or 3 weeks later, they shut down every movie theater.
Yeah.
But
sometimes let's
just say things are percolating again. So we have faith and hope in the flow.
Yeah. And what the difference there is, when you really are on your path to manifest something that you're 100% certain about, there's going to be curves.
Or knuckleballs, as we say.
Absolutely. That's just the way it works. Yeah. You're not in control of the entire universe, right?
And you're not even promised that's going to happen.
No,
and if Dave Clark were here, he'd be sharing, if you can just imagine this guy that's 5'2" and he wants to play professional baseball on crutches.
Yeah.
You're going to think he doesn't have a shot. And, there's 0%, 0 to maybe let's give it a 1.0101% kind of thing. And, but Dave always talks about this. He prepared for the moment, not being sure if it would ever happen. And he prepared for it as if it was going to happen.
Exactly.
6 days a week, training 4 hours a day, running 5 miles a day on his crutches, pitching, changing his arm-hand grip, trying to change his grips to try to perfect his skill, playing as much as he could play to get that one shot.
Yeah. And that's certainty.
And
right.
It wasn't even certain he would get the one shot for him.
It's certainty of this is the direction I choose to go.
Right.
Right. You don't know you don't have to know how you're going to get there.
Right.
You just go I want this and I'm going all the way, and who knows where it will lead you.
Yeah. And so he literally handwrote every professional baseball team at the time, and he got one tryout.
That's amazing.
He had 3 responses, got one tryout, and made the team.
Yeah.
It was the Pittsburgh Pirates organization. Yeah. And that parlayed into a 45-year career. I mean, the odds of that are very low.
Yeah.
And, but the difference with him is he prepared for his opportunity with no guarantee that he would even get the opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think that's the lesson I would want to give here. And so tell us more about where we can find you, the money, the money magnet queen here, I'll call her. She's Dr. Amanda.
Ooh, I like that label.
There you go.
All things NFA Money. So if they go to NFAmoney.com and then all my social media handles, my book is I'm a Money Magnet. So if you just go to I'mAMoneyMagnetBook.com, comes with a free course, like really tons and tons of value. If you're ready to tap into money magnetism, even if you think that you're not into money magnetism, I promise you'll get something out of it, because we all have money blocks and unconscious money beliefs that are holding us back. Yeah. I don't care how much money you make. If you're making none or millions of dollars, this book is a guide for you to up-level your money vibe and break through any unconscious blocks so that you can get to whatever level you choose.
Wonderful. And thank you for being here. Is there any last words that you'd want to give to people as we give a last shout out?
Thank you for sharing your story. I mean, as you know, podcasting to me is such a powerful, beautiful gift to the world. I have a podcast too. And it's like, when I went from food stamps to six figures and through listening to podcasts, like in big ways, I just thought, I think podcasters are the coolest people. You talk about pulling people up and pulling people along in that journey. Like, it's such a gift to the world. So thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you. And it's part of the podcast thing is we get to meet great people like you. And we get the greatest guests in the world, as I say. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for participating and being a guest on the Pulling Each Other Along podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Pulling Each Other Along podcast. If you were inspired today, please share this episode and let us know in the comments section. Don't forget to thank and let those great people in your life know how they pulled you along.